Good night. Wonderful. Have a good evening. Thank you again so much. Thank
Hello.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, Stephen.
How are you?
Very good. I haven't forgotten about the photos.
Hi, Anna.
Last week would have been a good week to do it, but I didn't have power all of last week.
Oh, were you out that long?
Yeah, we're on the Laurels and Shore Drive, and that particular stretch of
Oh, right.
Shutesbury roads are hooked up by Wendell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Monday through late Thursday night.
Wow, that's so long. That's like Halloween snowstorm length.
It went off and on. So Monday came on, then went off, and then Wednesday came on, then Thursday went off. Because every time they find more trees on it, they turn the power off. So it's pretty amazing. They got a couple new poles on new telephone pole on Wendell Depot Road. But I'm impressed. I saw over 25 tree and electrical company trucks on Wendell Depot Road in one day.
Wow.
They were shaking snow off the trees at one point. That's all they were doing.
Wow. Did you lose your whole fridge and everything?
No, I did not. No, we kept
good.
ice and that. Yeah, everything. We didn't open the freezer, and we kept on putting. We had lots of snow to put in the freezer, refrigerator.
Sure. Well, that's good at least. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, but this spring, we're gonna put a whole unit generator in. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So
We lost our well pump. My well pump we found out was from 1986.
Oh,
So it owed nobody nothing, you know.
wow. Who'd you get to replace it?
Cushing's.
Oh,
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
But
we
you
did the whole shebang. It was below ground, so they raised it up. You know, everything's new. Yeah, new tank. Tank was super old too.
does the water taste different now?
We've been drinking water from the neighbor, just filling up, 5-gallon jug. We have a lot of iron in our water, so we had to bypass the iron while everything settled from the replacement. So we didn't want to drink it with all the iron. And so yeah, we just turned that back on, which is that's a fun process. Water turns real brown, but
we
it's all fine. We had power. We never lost power during that storm, and so we've had power. We have heat. Like water's easy with neighbors, and we're fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Several years ago, we lost our pump, and after the new pump was put in, we started getting a lot of iron.
Yeah.
Long story short, somebody told me about a filter you put on it's a very large passive filter, and it totally takes it out because our I don't know if you know of Buzzy Booth,
Yeah.
but Buzzy suggested this gentleman who came in and said, yeah, I got iron. I mean, he had little test tubes and some solutions, but he wanted to put in a neutralizer that was salt based, and you got to flush that regularly, and you dump all that salt water outside, and we have large garden areas, and I'm like, and my wife were like, I don't know about that. So we held off, and then we had our water tested, and the gal at I forget the name of the place down there in Hatfield, But she said, oh yeah, I had that problem and I put this filter on. So if you want, I'll take a photograph of it and send you the info, but
Oh, sure. Yeah.
the filters
Yeah.
last, they say change them every 3 months.
Mhm.
I actually have been able to go 6 months,
Oh, interesting.
but it really changed dramatically, the color,
Yeah.
and I mean, the iron, the most annoying thing is, you get that iron residue like inside your toilets and everything
Yes.
else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this has really resolved that.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
it's a whole house one, not a
Yeah.
faucet.
Yeah, it's right after the water comes through the pressure
Yeah.
tank
Yeah.
and runs into the house.
Oh, I'd like to have that too. Let me, I'm
Okay.
gonna I forgot my folder. I'll be right back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, ours is also it like collects it and then flushes it out, once or twice a week at like 2 a.m.
Oh,
Perfect
that's-
timing.
Yeah, I think it's because you don't want to be running water when it's flushing
Right.
because it can stir it up or something. Yeah. But we don't have, I'm not a good gardener, so there's no love lost on the side of the house. So, there's-
Plus for us, the side of the house they wanted to put it out on.
Yeah.
It's right in the area where the well is.
Oh,
And I'm
sure.
thinking, well, over a long period of time, is that gonna get
Yeah.
down into that aquifer? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. That's fun stuff. I mean, the great part is we turned the iron thing back on and all the iron had been collecting just came out. So the water's brown and the kid's like, it's
Yeah.
chocolate milk. I'm like, don't
Right.
drink it. Get away from it. Kind of
So-
looks like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
For like an hour and then it all
Right.
it ends up.
Last night, Jeff didn't make the library building committee, and I'm not sure why. So I don't know if he's going to
Oh.
make it tonight.
He was in Miami, I think.
And is he still in Miami, do you think?
I got 2 emails from him today, so I'm uncertain. But did one of them say he couldn't come tonight? He had a conflict?
I didn't get any emails from him.
I don't have any either. Is our quorum, what is our quorum?
3.
Three. Okay.
We have a quorum.
Okay, okay. What do we want to do?
Well,
I'll just reach out to Steve and see if he's been so straight out in his, as the highway crew.
yeah, a little busy.
Yeah. But it should be settling down at this point.
Well, I think we could get started.
Yep.
I'll call this meeting to order at 5:36. I took a look through the minutes. Anna, have you had a chance to look through the minutes?
Very briefly.
Yeah, I think the only thing I did was add a period or two. I thought they looked pretty good. So do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from the 18th?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
McGinn, aye.
Dalmas, aye.
Cook eye.
Okay. Just, I didn't put this in, but I did go, we'll just, because this will take just a minute. The door closer for the town hall senior room. I went back and took a look at the door, and the one measurement I hadn't taken suggests that that closer should work fine. So do we need a motion, Becky, to order a LCN 1460 door closer for the town hall?
Why
Or-
not? You're all here. It'll take a second.
Okay, do I hear a motion to order a LCN 1460 door closer for the senior room of the town hall?
So motioned. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
McGinn, aye.
Dalmas, aye.
Cook eye. Sorry.
I know.
Okay. Have you all, moving on to that Gale and Associates report, y'all had a chance to read through that.
Yep. It's a long one.
Yeah. And how about, Becky, you sent out the indoor air quality assessment to all of us, correct?
Yeah. Did everybody get it?
I think,
You want me to see when I sent it?
The 17th.
Huh. Anna, did you receive it?
I didn't see it here. Let me pull it back up.
I'll forward it as soon as I find it.
I have it here. I can put it up on the,
On the 17th, you said?
yeah. That's when mine came over.
and that's the indoor air quality assessment done by the
Yep.
state.
Yep.
Yeah, I do have that. Sorry, I went right by it.
Oh, great.
Well, I have a couple questions, Becky.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
just make Frank, he's faster, he's got it ready. Make him a co-host so he can put it up on the screen.
Yep. Okay.
I don't remember when I looked, are we being recorded?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, one question, what was the reason for it originally being done?
We got a letter from the Board of Health received a letter that somebody was questioning the condition of the school and making
Okay.
some very serious accusations.
Okay,
And so I called and talked to, Mike Feeney, the director of the program.
mhm,
And he said he would be happy to come out and do an assessment. He actually had been in Shutesbury 15 years ago and did an assessment of our town hall.
okay,
And he was happy to come out and do another one for us.
okay. So I assume that's something that the state does for, or did for Shutesbury at no cost to Shutesbury.
Correct.
Okay, so I noticed in the report, it says they would be happy to come out and do one in the winter.
Oh my, that's a good point. We should request that they do that.
So that's something you would take care of?
I can call Mike.
Okay. So, my reading of the report, what it talks about, because this one was done in the summer, they found high humidity levels and such that there'd be more risk of mold growth. But they also said they did not see any signs of mold growth. So that's a good thing. But then they made various suggestions on how to reduce the risk of moisture and mold growth. One was replace the carpeting with something that would not be affected by moisture. They said replace the missing ceiling tiles. And then one of the things they said, which I really didn't understand, is they suggested, this is on the last page of the report, repair or replace the exterior fenestration system. So they're saying replace all the windows and doors. To your knowledge, Becky, are the windows in bad shape?
The windows were all replaced in 2010, I believe. Not all, I have to qualify that. The classroom, the exterior windows around the building, that they were Marvin windows, they were 15 years old. And you could put your finger right through the frame and the sills around in a number of places around the building. And
So all those were replaced.
yes,
Yeah, so I don't
But
know.
excuse me, the interior courtyard, we replaced, Becky, what, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, one of the sliders that was rotted.
Right,
Before the building committee, the previous building committee was dissolved, we were talking about replacing the second one, which is also in need of. And those also, it's probably those interior windows that all need replacing.
when you
Well,
say interior, do you mean in the courtyard area?
Courtyard, yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Well, there's a second. So I was in the building looking at that with the roofing engineers, and the library slider is in much better shape than the conference room slider had been. So it might not, that should be looked at again. I'm not sure if it's really in need of replacement yet.
Mhm.
The difference in the conditions is the gutters near the conference room still have multiple holes in them, and water pours out like a rain shower head every, maybe multiple ones. It's just that whole area, that window was just being inundated with water on a constant whenever it rained, and rotted out much more quickly. So gutter repairs would go a long way to saving the life of the new window at the conference room, because it's still not, the
And
gutters.
and that goes back to, they haven't been cleaned in a long time either, because the ones that go through yep, right, there we go, Steve. The ones that go through the courtyard are more difficult because they go to a cistern. And then out,
Probably, they're more complicated. There's more pieces coming down, but
is there a
they could be
drawing on
repaired.
that drainage system somewhere?
Yep, probably in the book.
Okay.
when,
Yeah. Frank, we look, Matt has a copy of as-built plans.
Okay.
And when we were at the school, when you first joined the other committee, you went whipping right through it and found that page. And
Okay.
we discovered that the drains go out. We thought they went out the front of the building, but they go out the back where the preschool playground is.
Yep. And that's where everything needs to be snaked from the outside in, I guess. I mean, we really have to have that addressed and have it augured or whatever you call that. Because that's where all the drains go. Yeah.
when
Front?
Gail and Associates was at the school doing their evaluation, and Becky and I were in the courtyard for a while, and I did not see any indication that the underground leaders were backing up. All the leakage was occurring from the joints in the guttering system. Every joint was either dripping, or there was one in the corner that was like a constant stream of water. And I don't know if it was one of the roofers or one of the Gale associate folks who was on the roof, actually pulled a plastic water bottle out of one of the
Gutters.
downspout openings. But those definitely need to be dealt with.
I think that last meeting we talked about, we did talk about that, and Jeff had an idea, so he can't help us today. Gutter busters. So did Becky, we talked last meeting, does the school committee or the school buildings committee have any money to clean up the gutters?
There is no school building committee, just so you're
Oh,
clear.
I mean, the school.
You
no,
guys are it.
Yeah, no, I meant, we talked about, we have a very small amount of money to do stuff, but does the school committee have any extra funds?
I think there's still a gutter line in the budget.
Okay.
There's some money, how much money are you thinking we need?
That's a good question. I think we have to get someone out to look at it
Okay,
and start from there, and then we'll have to get 3 bids or something, but
I just meant how much work are you thinking about?
well, I think the gutters have to be, everything has to be caulked on the inside, caulked and new sealed on the courtyard side, but the more important one is cleaning all the exterior ones, specifically the ones on the south side, that have to probably be drained from wherever they go out to, all the way back to the building or something. So it might be a little bit of work.
Definitely for the underground lines that are clogged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do some work this week.
So the last, another one of the long-term recommendations made in the IEQ study was examine whether exterior wall slab junction can be repaired to render watertight. Since it's a slab on grade, I'm not sure what their concern / suggestion would be.
Are they looking for flashing?
Well, flashing wouldn't really make it watertight.
No.
I think of, so you've got slab on grade, and then you've got some kind of plate on top of that, right? And how do you seal the plate to make it watertight? And what is the reason, for their suggestion there? I don't know. It's sort of like, that confuses me as much as repair or replace the exterior fenestration system, because that seems to be suggesting that the majority of windows need to be replaced, but it sounds like the majority of the windows were replaced in 2000, what, Becky? Not that long ago, right?
2010.
Yeah.
Maybe they're talking about caulking that area, because a lot of things caulking seals a lot of things, and if it's just the cladding going down to grade and it was never caulked properly, that's where water can probably seep in. And maybe that's what they mean with the window system. I know the number B on that one is repair and replace exterior wall cladding, and that's just repair and caulking, because some of it has been weathered, and hopefully we'll get them to paint it sometime next summer.
Right.
Do you think they're thinking of like where you can attach some kind of rubbery membrane, almost like a skirt, high, above grade, tucked under the cladding, and then it goes below grade and swoops out, and then you cover it with stone and perforated pipe, and you just, all the water that wants to sheet down the siding hits that and gets directed somewhere else, just to kind of like bypass the joint where the wood meets the concrete. I'm not saying that's the prettiest thing, but
Yeah. I mean, how that wouldn't work on 2/3 of the building, or
because there's
concrete.
concrete coming right up to,
Yeah.
I
It
see.
might work in the back or in the sides, but
That's where I was thinking, the side that faces the play area. I wasn't thinking, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay, great. Bad idea.
Well, I think what might work, Anna, would be if you, at the base of the wall, where you have grade, adjust the grade so the slope is correct, put down a heavy membrane that then is covered with gravel.
Mhm.
And then any water that comes down, hits the gravel, goes down to the membrane. And because the grade is positive away, then it drains away. And it won't dig furrows if a gutter is spilling over, or if there isn't a gutter. And, should hold up for quite a long time. I guess as long as the kids don't start
Yeah.
throwing the gravel.
That's basically what I was saying, but in places, what Frank's saying is in most places you got concrete right up to the building.
They weren't specific on this thing either, but I know that when we looked at the building way back when, the south side has gardens right up against the building. So, that's where the water doesn't, it has no place else to go, but just to sit in these
Mhm.
pools of garden.
Well,
And we-
I'm
The
sorry.
gardens,
There was
The
some dirt things right up against the building in the back. I remember that.
yeah, the real garden is, there's a pathway between the real garden, but there are plantings, I think.
Plantings, okay.
Mhm.
But there, I remember with Mike Feeney, who did this report, he was really concerned where the soil sort of is built up along the foundation, that we really needed to clear that back away from the concrete and open that up. That was the case here. There was like 8 to 10 inches of soil all along the foundation of Town Hall. And we had an episode where water just started pouring in through the foundation. And they seem to be related.
These are all wonderful ideas, except as a landscaper who spent 4 years running the after-school program and going around in circles on the outside of that building and looking at it all the time, the problem is that the grade is flat from the building to the sidewalk, and then it's flat from the sidewalk to the edge of the woods. So there's nowhere for the water to run at all, unless we were to pull the sidewalks up and regrade the entire area around the school.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. On the west side, the water can get away, but on the south and east and the north side, the front, there's nowhere for the water to go.
On the back side, the south side, perhaps after that sidewalk, we could put a French drain in. A gravel, a 2-foot French gravel drain on that side of the building, right at the edge of the sidewalk. So when the water came off the sidewalk and drained into a gravel 2-foot pit that had a pipe draining out to the back, that might help. But I don't know how you might get into major sidewalk repair. But if we can do a couple of those French drains that we can go straight out, that might help get rid of some of that water. Because I remember that you did say that everything pools.
That certainly would be possible, because at some time the sidewalk going around the entire rear of the building is it's asphalt, and we're gonna have to repave the entire parking lot, so that we could cut and definitely do the drains that way. But somehow getting under the sidewalk in the front where it's concrete, that would be a whole different deal.
It'd have to be drains right off the sidewalk. They can't do anything. They didn't slope the sidewalks. I remember that. The sidewalks weren't sloped now.
So when they put in the new roof over the gym, they connected to the drain that's right off the stage area and ran pipes. So now the drainage for the gym roof is inside the gym. Water comes in to the gym and drains into this pipe that leads under the driveway out into down into the field. I think there's a couple manholes there, Steve.
Mhm.
You know where they are.
The water goes into the catch basin system and dumps out into the wetland at the back corner of the parking lot, not into the field.
It dumps into where does it dump? Into
The back corner where the basketball court is,
Okay.
it dumps out into the wetland right there by those tires that are partially buried in the ground.
So we're getting as much water as we can off that end of the school, and whatever is left over is just natural water hitting the side of the building, but everything from the roof is being redirected, Becky?
for the gym, yeah.
Yeah, at least
Yeah,
for the
so
gym part.
So, yeah, Frank, there's no more sheeting of water across the sidewalk and it's not freezing like it
It
did the
did.
last few years.
Okay, good, good, good.
But there was, I saw that day when I was there, water had poured out the scupper. And for water to come out the scupper, I thought that was, it had to have been a heavy downpour. Isn't the scupper now the emergency relief for the water? But
Yes, it is.
And has that been cleaned lately?
Yeah, it should have all been super clean when it was all replaced and rebuilt.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's, but how often should we be cleaning it and how do we do that?
or just, it has to be inspected yearly or something. Generally after the fall, because that's when leaves blow and collect and clog it like we all.
Interesting. Becky, you're talking about the day that I was there with you?
Yeah,
Okay, so in the report done in August, they have a picture, it's picture 4. This water was draining from that scupper. Yeah, you can see, there you go.
yep.
Mm.
So whatever, whatever the condition is that is causing it to drain, it was draining back in August.
So maybe I should be calling the engineer who did that and ask them if there might be an issue or if that's normal.
Well, it could be something as simple as no one is checking the roof drain, the primary roof drain, and it is clogged with enough debris that water's backing up and coming over the edge of, the scupper, the emergency.
Didn't we ask Hayden
did.
Roofing to do that? And they went up
asked them
and
to
they
check
didn't
it.
see, they said the drain was clear.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I didn't get on the roof that day, but it might be worth getting up on the roof and taking a look at that.
Or using our building committee drone, but
Or a 28-foot extension ladder.
They did put up, Gale and Associates put up a drone. Can't wait to see their new pictures.
mhm.
And the report, the full evaluation is supposed to be out hopefully by the end of the week.
Good.
Okay, so going from the indoor air quality report, did that then lead you to get Gale and Associates involved?
Well, we needed an engineer for the main roofs of the main asphalt section of the roof once we completed the gym. So we got them involved to do that. But as we walked through the building, I emailed them the air quality report and asked a lot of questions and gave them some of the feedback I had been given. Because we had also the same day we had the envelope analysis done by a different engineer for the Green Communities grant. He did not write up a summary. I mean, he implemented a summary through recommendations that were part of the grant that we received. So we'll have money to do, air sealing and all kinds of caulking around doors and windows. Different things like that. So I'll share that report with you guys next. I still have to connect with the state folks and learn how we're allowed to administer that grant.
Well, it sounds like that the air quality, that's the next part of the air quality report, is this report saying, yeah, if we have to go around all the windows and recork and do all that other stuff. So that sounds good.
So in this, the first part of the Gale and Associates report, they talk a lot about the vapor barrier and how it's not sealed at the seams. This would be below the insulation and on where it's on top of the original roof. And they're also saying that it's not sealed between what would be the roof and the walls. And then they go on, they sort of conclude, and they talk about, in our opinion, it would be best to address both the wall and attic vapor barrier holistically, so a fully sealed system could be provided. This would likely include demolition of all the exterior wall cladding in order to provide a breathable air/vapor barrier on the exterior side of the sheathing and new rigid insulation behind the new wall cladding instead of insulation within the wood frame stud cavity. This method would require that the new vapor barrier be notched and sealed around each truss cord at the eaves of the building, which, and this is the part I really like, which could still present air leakage concerns in the future. When you and I were in the attic, Becky, there was nothing in the attic that suggested there was any excessive vapor drive into the attic, because they also go on later and they talk about adding new vents around the entire eave and gutter line. And from spending a lot of time in attics over 40 years, one of the things that I would typically see if there was a problem with excess moisture/vapor in the attic is I would see where the nails, on cold winter days, there'd be frost on the nails. And then when that would melt, it would stain the sheathing and it would turn slightly black adjacent to nails where the nail penetrations are. And in that attic on the school, there's none of that. And that roof was changed when they did the renovation addition, right?
Yep.
93, am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So
93.
I don't see the big concern. Now, one of the things that they talked about, in terms of taking off the siding to deal with the vapor barrier, they then talked about putting rigid insulation behind the siding, which, years ago, and if you go to, it's actually, you don't have to look at this, but in the IAQ analysis, one of their references is a study done by Joseph Stiebrek, they don't have his first name, and someone else. And Joseph Stiebrek, I don't know if anybody else knows of this gentleman, but he was a forensic engineer. He studies building failures. And early in my inspection career, he was on the speaker circuit. And some of the things that he had discovered, like crawl spaces, which for many, many years, it's been required that you ventilate a crawl space. Turns out it's the worst thing you can do. And, my experience from being in a lot of crawl spaces, I totally concur, with what he said. So anyway, he's very knowledgeable. And one of the things that he and others discovered was that in cold climates, even if you have a well-insulated wall cavity, you can get condensation occurring on the sheathing outside the building behind the siding. But if you put rigid insulation on the sheathing and then the insulation, you prevent that. So I can understand that suggestion, but all these different concerns about, sealing, I'll say perfectly, the vapor barriers. And they do admit that, the original roof, the tar and chip roof is a vapor barrier, which I totally agree with. So I feel that in their, and then getting back to, where they measured the insulation and said it was only, I think, 9 inches. Well, there were areas where the insulation had been compressed for some reason, but in a lot of areas it was not. But on their, more insulation is always better, but that's the least expensive item on their list. Number one, $50,000 to $70,000 to add insulation.
So you guys are aware, in my conversation with them after receiving this, I indicated that if we are to go with the insulation, we could, that is something that we could do outside of this project, because it can be blown in after the new roof is put on. And we might be able to get a grant through Green Communities to do that, especially since it's been specified as a need. That would help. Next year, I could probably get a grant to pay for that. And I told them that, if we're talking about insulation, that's what we would try to do. It's better to get a grant than spend $70,000 if we don't need to. Especially when I had a whole bunch of work done in 2014, and I think the price then was $15,000. So I want to shop around.
Right.
So number 1 and number 3, could that be used in the green, Becky? Add blown in insulation, then remove existing fiberglass and reseal vapor barrier? Is that
If that's determined what we need to do, I think that was debatable.
mhm.
I've heard. What do you guys think?
I don't see that as being a concern.
Okay.
As I said, being in the attic, there's no indication of excess vapor or moisture in that attic. I mean, it's one of the driest attics that I've ever been in, given, the type of staining that would typically occur if you've got any excess moisture in there. Especially in the area over the original building where you have a roof that's really a vapor barrier. So moisture from the building section that has the original roof first has to get past the original roof to get into the new attic.
That makes sense. So
And Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, you and I were in part of the attic, that last part where we crawled over that big ventilation duct, and some of that was the new addition, correct?
Yeah, we were going, Steve, I think we were over the 5th and 6th grade classrooms.
And that looked the same as the other areas. And I would go, I'd be glad to go look at some of that again. But in my mind, that would be a waste of money.
I'd agree.
And I guess I also question how did they determine that all these areas of vapor barrier, which are covered by insulation or walls and ceilings. Now I know maybe in part of the addition where you could look above the drop ceiling, you could see some of that, but that it wasn't sealed. And they did say, there were some areas that were sealed with spray foam insulation, but that was not, I don't know if they said it wasn't proper or it wasn't long lasting, but I just questioned some of the comments.
I was pointing out, because that 2014 project was where we brought in the insulation folks to do the I-beams, because the I-beams had not ever been insulated at the end, so they were bringing cold air into the building. So that insulation, and then spray foam seemed to appear in multiple other places as we poked around to tighten up different cavities, as well as the the spray in insulation. But I think it was in the air quality, and I have to read back through, but in the air quality investigation, their big concern were the areas. If you go, Frank, if you go back to
Yep.
the pictures.
Yep.
See where, like, the second picture where you see the plastic, it looks like, is that insulation coming out of the plastic? So it's not sealed, right?
No, that's foam coming out. I was just
Oh,
trying
yeah,
to
that's
down.
where they did with foam. But there
Yeah.
were a bunch of areas where the plastic wasn't connected to anything. It was just flopping around. I tried to show that to the building and to Gale engineers, but I had trouble finding those areas. I think one of them was in the principal's office and in the reception area, but we didn't, I just poked around in the windows there and I didn't find it. But that was of great concern to the building envelope guy. He said it was useless. It was like having no insulation there at all. This is okay. This is buttoned up between
And that's
the,
where the I-beams are.
yep. So that's probably in the gym area.
Yeah, it's the only pictures I have of that. And the
Yeah.
depth is not a concern. I don't know what this one is. This is just more foam behind here, I guess they're talking about. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And the sheetrock.
Well, I would agree that where the insulation, where the vapor barrier is under the insulation, like in that one picture that we saw, that does need to be sealed. Because otherwise, the insulation just acts as a sieve. So that would be important to seal. And that was also the area where, in their report, they were saying that some areas apparently had the 5/8 fire code sheetrock, and this would be an area where they didn't. And they were kind of surprised by that. I would be surprised by that too.
And so the solution would be to put the sheetrock in those areas?
If possible, yeah, because the 5/8 fire code, has, I don't know if it's an hour or hour and a half burn rating. So fire has to be burning for quite some time before it can breach.
It's the total configuration of the wall. Adding sheetrock doesn't do anything to the fire rating. Only it has to do with the total configuration of what's on the front, what's in the middle, and what's on the back. So they can't turn around and say adding 5/8 is a fire rated wall. They have to look at the configuration, and all the UL numbers show it. So it's a wall configuration. So we'd have to look at the total wall to get what the UL is, whether it be one layer or two layers to get the fire rating.
Well, I guess starting with the building official to see if there's a concern there related to fire safety.
I'd rather go back to the original engineering that everyone said that was the spec at the time, rather than open a can of worms and have someone say, oh yeah, now you need to put a fire rated wall, a double wall up there.
Right. Well, that makes good sense. But sealing the vapor barrier, which wouldn't be that hard, that would be the thing definitely to do. And as far as the outside walls, it would be possible at some point to remove near the top of a wall maybe on several different orientations. A couple of pieces of siding to see if there's been any signs of moisture, excess moisture. And then that could guide us as to whether or not you need to proceed with, essentially, I think that's number 5,
Yeah.
which is the $1 million plus job.
The one Becky didn't like.
Right.
That one keeps me up at night.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of times in, the orientation. So the north orientation might be the one that's most at risk because you're not getting any sun on the wall at all. It's not going to dry out. And then I'd say east, west, south in that order. So if you check, check the north wall in a spot or two, there's no signs of any issues. You put the siding back on, don't worry about it. And again, in '93, a lot of this was not information that was readily available. I mean, people didn't know a lot of this. So the suggestion, if it was being built new, that's probably how you'd want to build it.
So you would want to build it where you secure and seal all your vapor barriers? And what are you saying, Steve?
Well, I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
the
I'm
new
saying-
walls, isn't the new walls now is they build the walls and they put a complete insulation on the exterior walls and then the cladding, and therefore that you have no cold barrier penetrating the existing wall on the inside to create wicked moisture to build up with time, because it's complete, the exterior wall is insulated. It's not doing a 2x6 wall and putting insulation in between it. This is putting rigid insulation on top of the 2x4 on the exterior, so no cold from the outside can penetrate to touch the wall. And that's a new spec. So I think that, number 5 is, bringing that building up to code. And I don't think, I'd rather hire a moisture specialist to give us a definitive answer where all the walls are and do with leakage rather than spend $1.2 million bringing a building that was built during an existing code up to a modern code. I don't think that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, the cost to do that is, as we can see, very expensive.
Yeah.
Do we know if in 5 where they just say new insulation, if we know what they mean, if they're talking about cavity insulation or doing rigid on the exterior as like a retrofit? Do we?
They're
Is that
That's up here.
okay?
I think it was one of that new, I think they were just going by new codes. And I mean, that, that makes great sense if we're a $1 billion corporation would do that. But I think for about 15 million, you'd probably build a new school.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that, no problem.
I think actually, Frank, if you go to where it says to summarize. Okay.
Oh.
No, come back.
Right there.
Yeah.
All right, just above that.
Yep.
Just above that. Go. All right. If oh, wait a minute. Oh, I must have something different. I don't have. 1, 2.
New rigid wall insulation behind the new wall cladding. So they are
Yeah.
saying that outboard of the stud wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is the new code now. So
It's cool, but that, then every window is like, if windows aren't part of this package, now every window is inset and we gotta
Right.
like the exterior jam cell. I mean, not saying it's not a worthwhile thing. It's just, it gets expensive quick. And then we
Yeah.
got to think about all the inside and outside corners where you make everything thicker on the outside. Are there any places where that doesn't play nice with a window near a
Right.
corner?
If you had all the money in the world,
Yeah.
you do it.
I think they're
And-
doing a looking glass saying, as of today, this is where you'd bring this building up to code. But as of today, we don't need to bring this building up to code because it was built during an era where a specific code was followed.
Mhm.
We don't
And
have
that's
to
what-
bring it up to building.
That's
Yeah.
what Chris said, and they were looking at, because at first, when I first talked to him, he wasn't certain if he was concerned that they hadn't followed the code that was in place when they built it. That was his original concern, but that
Mhm.
didn't, that he was able to dismiss that concern. So this is more about how to make the building function, given, the fact that not everything is sealed, but it's, you would do this if we were tearing the building apart and really renovating like we did in 93, but because that's not even touching the roof.
Well,
You spend that 1.2 million, you still have to fix the roof.
That's
I
what we're
think-
doing first.
I think also, it's important that a report like this, in my mind, should be identifying what a current condition is that's truly problematic, and then suggesting the remedies, which I feel to a certain extent, the indoor air quality report is making suggestions on how to reduce moisture around the building that could lead to mold growth. And none of their recommendations, well, a couple of those, which I still don't understand fully, are much more reasonable. Here, they're talking about the vapor barrier not being sealed at all these different junctures, but they haven't explained what problem they're creating. And, taking all the siding off to do that extensive project, again, they're not showing what the current problem is. And so I think unless, you can determine that there's a problem condition, anything that you'd be doing, as Frank said, is just, like, it's bringing it up to code, but that's not something that we need to do or required to do.
Right.
I think, because the other thing he asked me to call the building inspector, about the concerns that they were, so I forwarded this report to the building inspector. And we haven't, had a good conversation about it. He hadn't read it when I talked to him. And I think the engineers were just trying to make sure that there wasn't a bigger issue that they were ignoring. If there is a fire code issue there, but they didn't find, their research didn't pinpoint to that, but they wanted input from our building inspector. And if the building inspector says, no, you don't have a problem, then I think that number 5 goes away.
I don't think number 5 has anything to do with the fire safety.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
The fire safety.
Right, it's number 4.
May not,
I'm sorry, I meant number 4.
okay.
And I think they were just, trying to offer us all the possibilities.
They were
Um,
covering their engineers. They're covering themselves that when we have something fail 10, 15 years from now, they said, I told you it was that.
Yeah,
And it takes them off their thing, off the list.
so do we think we've talked about this enough for the moment?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So we want to spend a little time on action levels.
Uh, do a couple sections on coal. Well, it is 6:30, so we gotta watch our time.
Oh,
Yeah, I have to pick up a kid in about 5 minutes.
all right. Well, maybe we could just talk very briefly about how we want to use the action levels. I was thinking about, just to be specific, where we have the walls, and I made changes. So if you go down where it says roofing or exterior, you can see now where it says trim, and then it's the type is wood, windows, wood. So the identification is made right there, and then the comments follow.
Yep.
So I think that makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Frank, if you could go to 2.1 siding. Thanks. Okay, so I have there are numerous sections of rotted, deteriorated siding. Recommend replacement is necessary. So our possibilities are priority high, priority low, monitor, not applicable, anticipate need to replace, and further inspection required. My feeling is that where we have something that's, in this case, rotted, I would suggest that either it gets a priority low or an anticipate need to replace. Because when the select board is looking through this, I think monitor, like, for instance, you don't have to go to it, but the floor furnace is old. And maybe that gets an anticipate need to replace, or maybe something that's working fine just gets monitor. In other words, if we don't find a problem, you just monitor it, you check it every so often. But I think it would be better for something that's rotted to either have priority low or anticipate need to replace, so that the select board can start to prioritize repairs. So what are everyone else's thoughts about that?
I agree. Anticipate need to replace. It's not, we don't want to redline it because the building's still functioning. It's still going to function as it rots away a little longer. It might get more expensive at the end. But I agree, just anticipate need to replace and they can see it.
Yeah. Anna?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, do you anticipate need to replace or priority low?
Anticipate to replace.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Anticipate need to replace. Yeah.
Okay.
I know Anna has to leave.
Yeah.
Stephen, I just wanted to touch on the asbestos before the meeting's over, just quickly.
Okay.
So we got the report back and it looked beautiful until almost the very last item, which was a red fail in, so we had ATC went out, they took core samples of the existing roof, and then they came indoors, climbed in the attic and took a core sample of the old roof. And that's where they found the tar paper that had the asbestos.
What year was that roof built?
72. And that roof is, so to access the roof, they had to climb in the attic and go out and push aside a whole bunch of insulation and to gain access to it. This is where I'll pass it on to Stephen quickly. We talked earlier and I'd just like to get a consensus if everybody agreed what Stephen was telling me.
So what I explained to Becky is, there's asbestos fiber content in the felt paper. It's not friable. I mean, if you think of paper in general, it's all fibers, right? And when it's put together, it then dries, and now it's a unit. You're not going to get asbestos fiber out of that felt paper without somehow gaining access. It's part of a roof composition. So there's roof sheathing, there's the felt paper and the hot tar or bituminous coating, and then there's gravel on top of it. And then on top of that is a vapor barrier and insulation. So it's not easily, well, it's very difficult to even access it. And you then have to aggressively damage it / destroy it to possibly get some fibers out of it. So my point is, it's not a problem.
I agree. The asbestos is sealed and contained. It's kind of like when you do lead abatement, they tell you to, paint some oil base over it and that abates the lead. We're not actively going through that roof. And I don't think the town wants to take both roofs off and replace both of them with a new roof.
Right. And Chris, the engineer, also said that it's not part of the project. It's, because we're replacing the asphalt portion of the roof and aren't cutting in there, so we don't have to deal with it.
I
But
agree.
I appreciate Stephen's full description because it really helps clarify that nobody has access to it and it's not a danger for the children.
Why did they have to go into the old roof? What was the explanation to do that?
In
Because
case
it was there.
Oh,
in case for, yeah, I don't know.
okay.
Okay, Anna has to go, so do I
Yeah.
have a motion to close this meeting.
Motion to close the meeting?
Second,
All
All
in
those in-
favor?
McGinn, aye.
Cook, I.
Dalmas, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Awesome.
Good night, everybody. See you in
Good
2
night.
weeks.
Good
Thanks
night.
for
Thank
the
you.
extra couple minutes, Anna. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks.
Bye.
Becky,
Yeah.
do you want me to, or you or, myself or Frank, spec out or look online at different options for that closer in terms of price? Because there seems to be, a variety of offerings at different prices.
That would be awesome. And then I can go ahead and order it if you give me the exact part number. I'd really appreciate it.
I'll do that online next couple of days.
Okay,
And then
Thank
just email you that. I'll look up what I'll do. I'll look up 3 prices and the cheapest, the one we'll go with will be on top, and then you have that. We're covered.
That's perfect. And I'm in a few minutes, it takes a few minutes for the Zoom to send me the recording.
Yep, no
Send it
problem.
to you tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all. Yep.
Thank you so
Night.
much, everybody. Good night.
Bye-bye.
bye.